What's the greatest platformer of all time? There's no consensus, right? Of course, the answer depends on who's answering. There are people who cite a Mario game without skipping a beat. Maybe their mind will go to a Crash game. Whether it's 2D or 3D also can depend on the person. To some not very familiar with games and are just searching for some dumb fun, a 2D platformer might be the answer. Of course, that's not the only reason to enjoy a 2D game more than a 3D one, but that's my example. When you start thinking about a 3D platformer for the prolific title of the greatest game ever, it significantly narrows your options. I know there are tons of fans of Kirby and the Forgotten Land, but what if I tell you that I don't really know why I'm being so vague? You read the title. After a while to reflect on the game, I'm going to be talking about my favorite platformer, if not my favorite game of all time, Astro Bot. So, to start off, Team Asobi is a small development team and a subsidiary of PlayStation. Before Astro Bot, they really only worked on a few smaller projects for PlayStation. These included the Playroom VR, and Astro Bot Rescue Mission. I'm going to be focusing on that last one right now, though. This was a small VR game that was used to show off the PlayStation VR, and although I've never played it personally, Astro Bot Rescue Mission was the video game that first thought up both the character and the world of Astro. It also did a great job at showing PlayStation that this was a studio bursting with talent and creativity. That made it so when it came time, Team Asobi got tasked with their next project, Astro's Playroom. This game was a PS5 launch title that was bundled with every system and pretty much just had a main goal to show off the DualSense controller. But what Team Asobi and PlayStation probably didn't expect was the sheer excitement this game would garner. I mean, it only makes sense that the team who pretty much just made a tech demo for PSVR would make one for PS5, this time having a much wider audience than those who owned a PSVR. Astro's Playroom also had PlayStation bots. Did I mention that yet? They're pretty much just the default bots in the game, with hair or clothing very similar to those of a PlayStation character, but not using the IPs, not using the names, okay? They can't sue me if I don't use their names. Now, I'm not going to act like the PlayStation bots didn't massively boost the game's appeal, but I think it's a bit more nuanced than that. Sadly, that's for later though. Right now, I want to talk about my experience with this game, as I am actually the person making this video. I bought my PS5 and discovered Astro's Playroom in early March of 2024. Yeah, I know, a little late to the party, but I'm going on a side tangent here. What made me really want to get this system were the trailers for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I played through a decent chunk of Remake on PC, so my first goal with this system was to finish Final Fantasy VII Remake, and when I got the PS5, suffice to say I didn't. When I discovered Astro's Playroom, I dropped all games, and frankly all responsibilities to play through this game, and when I finished it again, and again, and again. Luckily I then realized that there was more to life than that stupid little bot. I mean, who knows where I would be if I kept playing that game and didn't do anything else like keeping up with the YouTube channel. Even after I stopped playing it, for the most part, Playroom stuck with me. The smooth and perfectly tuned platforming, the use of the DualSense that has only really been matched recently. Can you guess what game matched it? And the amazing art direction that can instantly tell you everything you need to know about the world as soon as you jump in. It wasn't just me though. I saw this echoed throughout the internet too. There was really only one complaint with the game, and that was the fact that it had to be relegated to this short of a game. People were begging for a game that's pretty much just Astro's Playroom, but has a full game. Yep. During the May 2024 State of Play, which was a relatively slow show all things considered, PlayStation showed the trailer for Astro Bot, and this was, for lack of a better word and lack of a funnier pun, astronomical. The trailer showed Astro laying in a desert, possibly mimicking Uncharted 3, and then moves to a collage of beautiful, lush environments, each varying immensely with instantly recognizable themes and the music making it feel like you're genuinely on an adventure. And another important element about this game that was revealed during the trailer was the fact that Team Asobi would be bringing the PlayStation bots back. This was a decision that I wasn't sure about when they revealed it, but of course bringing them back was better than not, right? It did create a feeling that Astro's Playroom and later Astro Bot would not be nearly as good without the PlayStation characters being integrated into the main game though. That's a conversation for later. For now, I get to look forward to a new Astro game. On September 6th, 2024, I'm gonna become a brand new person. Just 4 more months. When Astro Bot released, I went back to Astro's Playroom, and as weird as that sounds, I had a reason. Although I had the game in hand, Team Asobi released a free DLC for Playroom that would slowly reveal things about Astro Bot. They released more gotcha gotcha machine prizes first, and a hidden bot in each of the 4 worlds next. These bots were spread out to the release of Astro Bot, with one bot being revealed every month or so. These bots, and I'm using the word bot way too much.
Shut up about this.
Bot.
Shut up about this.
Bot. Were meant to reveal some of the IPs being represented in the aforementioned game. Bloodborne, Returnal, Gran Turismo, and Ape Escape were revealed in that order. And to be kind of blunt here, these weren't good bots to choose in order to make people excited for bot. And yeah, that's what I'm calling Astro Bot. Looking at the lineup of not only PlayStation but video game characters as a whole in Astro Bot, there were definitely much better options. That doesn't really matter though, because people were excited to play this, including me. And when the game downloaded, I wasted no time in opening this perfect, unmistakably amazing game. So to start, I realized that I have a really bad habit when writing these scripts, and yeah, I've at least been writing scripts of going through every little thing that happens in a game. I'm not going to do that today though. So this is partly because I don't want to spoil much about Astro Bot, but also because I don't think this game needs a summary. It doesn't have the deepest story to get that out of the way, but Astro Bot's a great game. I'm sure that's an opinion you've probably heard everywhere on the internet, but I'm echoing it today. Speaking of echoes, the new Zelda is pretty great, right? Again, that's for later though. The smooth platforming that, well, is pretty much just the same as Playroom is enhanced a lot through different factors here. Obviously, you have the basic jump and laser, but you also have a variety of gadgets that you get at the start of most levels. I'm gonna rank all of them now because I want to. I also feel like I shouldn't go without saying this, but I beat the game and completed everything within it, so you know I'm qualified to hide from the sun while I make this video. Anyway, number 16, the net. So these were actually really hard to rank, which I didn't think would be a big issue, so I stand corrected. The net is last place because even though it's definitely iconic, it isn't interesting enough to use and is only used in one level. To clarify though, none of these gadgets are bad, I just feel like I like some more than others. Number 15. Elephant. I'm gonna start off and say this, I don't think this thing should have been used as much as it was. It was fun during the Trunk of Funk boss, which is the level where it was first introduced, but it never clicked with me in any level besides that one. Number 14, Octoballoon. Just like the last gadget, this one never clicked with me. It's also the first gadget you get in the game, and probably should have been replaced with something else. Number 13, Blobs. I actually originally had this one at 14, but while thinking about it, I decided the gadget's just too creative to put below the fucking Octoballoon. This is used during the Loco Roco level and plays homage to that game, and although I've never played it, I can appreciate the support it's given for a game that's often regarded as a hidden gem. This can be clunky with the way you roll with the controller though, so I'm putting it at 13. Don't get me wrong though, it's still really cool. Number 12, the Penguin. The Penguin is a pretty basic gadget that makes you swim faster in water. It does have something that few games have been able to do though. It makes water levels fun. Number 11, the Chicken. The Chicken's also pretty basic. It's a rocket that propels you upwards for a little bit. It can definitely be handy, but there also isn't very many ways to challenge a player by using this gadget, so it's 11. Number 10, the Toy Gun. This is the Uncharted gadget. Let's get some shoutouts for Uncharted in the chat. Woo! Please cut that. This is the Uncharted gadget that you get after saving Bot than Drake. And to be honest, it definitely wouldn't be this high if it wasn't for the fact that the DualSense gets a couple more vibrations a second from exploding while using this gun. And while that was a really poorly thought out metaphor, I feel like a lot of these gadgets find themselves in the same situation. It isn't very complicated, but the quirks of the DualSense controller make them just so satisfying to use. Number 9, the Leviathan X. This is the God of War gadget, and as much as I want to put it higher than 9, the fact that it's pretty much just a throw and return gadget only being used in one level drags it down a ton. Still a really exciting scene where you get the axe though. Number 8, the Monkey. So the Monkey is a gadget that slaps the ground, grabs walls, rocks, shells, and more. So this is pretty much just the middle ground for gadgets. It works, but it just doesn't feel right. Number 7, bow and arrow. This is the last gadget that's inspired by PlayStation series. This time it's inspired by Horizon and uses slow motion when you pull back the string, letting you shoot multiple enemies in a short amount of time. I know, I said that gadgets that are only used in one level can't be high up, but this one's just really satisfying to use. Number 6, the Bulldog. The Bulldog's just pretty much the Chicken. You fly forward instead of up this time though. It isn't any more interesting than the Chicken, but going forward is just a better control than going up. Number 5, Frog Gloves. You know ARMS? The game from Nintendo that was really early on the Switch? This is just ARMS. They're sticky now though. These are fun, but don't try to make a full game out of them. Number 4, the Sponge. This gadget doesn't create many challenges or interesting level designs. It's really fun to use. I mean, when you click the triggers and it like goes small and all the water pours out. It looks really cool. You can put out fires. Number 3, Clock. The clock features a VR headset that Astro puts on, paying homage to PSVR, where Team Asobi got their start in games. This is also a gadget that is somehow really complicated, yet one of the simplest gadgets in the game. It stops time for a bit, that's all, but the amount of things a developer can do with that concept is really what propels this to number 3. Using it can either be the perfect challenge, or just end up being really easy. Number 2, Muteki. If you don't know what a Muteki is, then it's a big metal ball. Or a small metal ball. This thing can honestly make for the most fun I've had in a game in a while, but it can also just be okay. But the fact that this thing can take every single hit and is also really smoothly controlled makes for levels that aren't too hard, but makes you feel like a badass while going through them. Number 1, Mouse. So the idea of being a really small creature surrounded by regular sized objects in the game always fascinates me, and this gadget lets you be regular Astro, obviously walking around just like usual, but it also allows you to shrink and make everything that used to be the same height as Astro huge. It ends up creating some really cool level design also. Usually with vents, you walk over them like nothing happened, but when you get the idea to shrink, you find out you can go into the vents and access a secret area. There's also a part of the level where you go into a bot's bedroom, with the bed becoming huge as you shrink down. You get the point, but it really is so much more fun and execution than it sounds right now, so I'm gonna stop talking about it. Welcome back to the actual video. You probably can see by now that the 16 included gadgets do a great job at spicing up the core Astro formula. Even for the gadgets low on the list, they each work perfectly for the already smooth control scheme, and I don't think Asobi could have done any better with freshening up the platforming. You don't want to change up the core formula because you really couldn't do any better than that, but you also don't want to keep everything the same as Astro's Playroom, because at that point, it would just be an expanded playroom. Either way, I think the gadgets were a really well thought out inclusion. They also do a good job at enhancing the combat, which is usually just a simple punch or spin moveset. And although I hate to make this comparison because these are two completely different things, it's kind of like a Mario game.
I hate my nose.
Sure, there are enemies to kill, but that's not why you're playing the game, I think. The first and foremost draw of these two series is the platforming, with combat also being present. Well, I mean, there is another reason why you'd play Astro Bot, but I'll get to that later. So, you can kind of tell that Team Asobi was also pretty unimpressed by their own combat system and tried to use the multitude of gadgets to improve it. I mean, it's pretty obvious when you consider that half of them don't even help with traversal or platforming, and I'd say that the gadgets that do help with combat were pretty successful in doing so. The ranged weapons, which were the bow and arrow, toy gun, and Leviathan Axe, even though they were pretty low on the list, this was just because they were only used in one level and would have been higher if used more. The monkey and frog gloves were also really fun and satisfying to use, while still being pretty simple. Okay, so maybe it wasn't half the gadgets that only help with combat, but there were a few gadgets that still could help with combat, and like I said earlier, this game isn't designed around fighting, so the fact that Team Asobi went above and beyond with the combat really shows how much consideration they put in every single little part of this game. And when I say every single little part, I mean it. I'm no art critic, but the art direction in Astro Bot is some of the most creative in a video game that I've ever seen. It makes sense considering the areas and playroom being one of the most memorable parts of that game. Cooling Springs, Memory Meadow, SSD Speedway, and GPU Jungle were each designed with every single area being its own separate and varied spot without sacrificing the integrity of the game's look. Obviously, fans like this and assume that Team Asobi would take a similar route with Astro Bot, a varied set of environments that still conform to the basic platformer level themes. Jungle, beach, ice world, grassy plains, city attack, and space. And maybe besides from city attack, these were pretty standard environments. They were all cherry-picked to death to make sure they worked with the titles, Memory Cards and Memory Meadow, but weren't gonna break records of innovation. And to be honest, they could have stuck with this core format and still have made an amazing game out of it. But just like everything else that's happened with Astro Bot, you give Team Asobi something that works, and they make it better. Sure, there's still your jungle levels, grasslands, and deserts, but there are now a crazy variety of levels. It's like they looked at the amount of levels that were in the game and thought, how can we create 90 uniquely themed levels? Spoiler, they made 90 uniquely themed levels. Each level, no matter what the theme, has a beautiful design and overall look, especially being aided by the team's familiarity with the PS5 hardware. And I'm not going to go over all of them, but you'll definitely see some of them on the screen right now. Also, did I mention the crazy physics engine this game uses? I honestly don't know what happened with this in the development cycle, but if that's what Team Asobi wanted to do, physics your heart out, Asobi. Speaking of worlds, there's 78 of them right now, which I already mentioned, but only half of them are main story levels. Actually, there's supposed to be 90 levels by the end of this year through free DLC, but I don't know when those are coming. 41 of those levels are hidden levels that you find by flying through the galaxy maps and finding secret rifts in some of the worlds. There are 11 hidden galaxy levels and 3 speedrun galaxy levels, which are the free update levels. Are you still following? No?
Let's try again, okay?
Anyway, the hidden galaxy levels are the ones found within hidden rifts in some levels. That's actually one of the few pet peeves that I have with this game. When you find a hidden rift, it teleports you to the hidden galaxy map and forces you to restart the level, which, you know, is usually like midway through the level, so that kind of sucks. The hidden galaxy levels are usually about half the size and length of the main worlds, and therefore are in their own galaxy. The other 29 hidden levels are found by flying around the galaxy map as you progress in that galaxy. When you finish everything in a galaxy, you should be able to find all the hidden levels, and the reason these aren't in their own separate galaxy is because these levels are more like obstacle courses than anything. With having only one bot and being significantly harder than the regular worlds, they're usually just a straight shot through that you'll definitely die more than once in. There are separate subcategories that these levels go into, but that would probably just overcomplicate this video more than it already is. Right? Right? In the last 4 galaxies, there are 4 triangle, square, circle, and X levels in each. These are where most of the challenges in these hidden levels come from for me, and I'm pretty sure I threw away a good, or bad, 3 hours of my life on the X levels, which I will never be getting back, and I very much regret. There are also 5 Retro Rampage and Crumple Rumble levels, with 1 in each galaxy. There are also some offshoot hidden levels, such as Degenie's Revenge, Rolling Star Solo, and Rolling Star Luna, being the only ones. If you were doing the math there, which you probably weren't and I don't blame you, that's only 40 levels, and the last level is located in the hub world and is the hardest level in this game. You unlock it by getting every single puzzle piece, and it's meant to be the final level. But to be honest, I kind of thought the X stages were harder. And just in case I get any info wrong here, I want to mention that I spent a little more than an hour writing this section. I mean, it wasn't a particularly hard section to write, but I kept seeing sources saying there were 90 levels in the game, and then later reiterating that the 90 levels is what Team Asobi wants to have by the end of 2024. I also saw a source saying that Astro Bot launched with 80 levels, so I don't know what they were talking about. I eventually just booted up the game and counted a total of 78. And then recounted a couple times, and I'm pretty confident that there's 78 levels in the game, including the 3 speedrun stages. But if I'm wrong, then please use discretion when writing your comment. And not to stretch out this section too much, but I'm editing now, and there are 2 additional speedrun levels, now totaling 80 levels in the full game. And I need to stop talking about levels now. So why don't I talk about what you do in the levels? Because that'll be a lot more fun. So what's just so important that Team Asobi had to make a game out of? Collecting puzzle pieces and bots. That's all. It obviously is a lot more nuanced than that though, so I'll explain what that means. The puzzle pieces are used to finish hub world puzzles and unlock different features within that hub world. There's the gacha machine first, which lets you buy different accessories for the bots you have, as well as dual speeder colors and costumes for Astro. The latter 2 also need to be unlocked by finishing puzzles and building the outfit building in the dual speeder lab. I don't actually know if those are the names for the buildings, but I'm gonna call them that. There are 20 different outfits for Astro, which range from different colors to PlayStation character outfits, and there are actually some really cool outfits in this game, but also some weird exclusions. There's 16 different dual speeder colors that you unlock, and use some really interesting designs, such as yellow and blue. These 2 buildings don't really amount to anything in the long run, but are good to have in the hub world. I mean, when playing Playroom, the main thing I was thinking about wasn't that you couldn't make Astro Skeleton, but it's really nice to be able to do that because skeletons are awesome.
Tried for me, and then I was no more. And it was also the night that the skeletons came to life. The bones are their money, so are the worms. All they want's another chance at life. They've never seen so much food as this. Undergrounders have as much food as this.
The other building being unlocked with puzzle pieces is the Safari, which pretty much just amounts to unlocking an in-game camera system. Exhilarating. The final thing you unlock with puzzle pieces is a giant Astro statue. Jeez, what a tyrant Astro is. It also unlocks the final level. And considering I've already talked about that, I'll talk about the bots now, because that is kind of what you do in this game. Rescue them, I mean. What is there to talk about with bots? You rescue them, and that's great. But what I think is the most interesting to talk about is the type of bots the game has you rescue. Specifically the video game bots, with less of a focus on the fact that they're here and more of an impact they have on the overall reception of the game. I swear I'm done with the transitions now. Obviously, it's no secret that there are an assortment of bots dressed as iconic video game characters here, and actually, if you're not familiar with this game but have at least heard of it, that was probably the part you heard about. and that's not good. Obviously, Astro Bot's helped by the video game cameos, but does that make Astro Bot seem like a better game than it should? How would this game be received if only characters in this game were Astro original characters? Of course, we can use the reviews for Astro Bot Rescue Mission to reflect on an Astro game without third-party support, and surprisingly, the game actually reviewed really well, which probably isn't surprising for some people, but for me, who's never played it and kind of just views it as training wheels for this series, it's kind of surprising. Astro Bot's a different game though, so my conclusion is that yeah, Astro Bot's better with the PlayStation characters, but that's the point. Astro's Playroom was created with the core concept being a love letter to PlayStation, and if there's anything I'd want you to take from this, it's that Astro Bot, besides from the support from other video game developers, is more than anything an amazing platformer with beautiful art design, smooth, buttery controls, and a really confusing amount of levels. I mean, seriously, what was this Team Asobi? Why are you lying to me? Hey! I'm back! This is at the end of recording the script. I was gonna do it, the outro, I mean, at the end of editing, but I just never want to open this stupid voice recorder platform again. Yeah, Windows platform. I don't know, man. Honestly, I really do love Astro Bot. I feel like I have some stuff to address. I've been gone for a while. To be honest, I don't have an excuse. I've been writing scripts, but I feel like once I get to the point of recording them or even editing, I've gotten to editing for a couple videos, I just kind of stop. I mean, I don't know. I got to editing for a Smash Bros video where I was going to make my own Smash Bros. That was great, but then I got fired from Nintendo. So I did a video about the PS5 and if it was a failure compared to other systems. It turns out the website I was using just gave me wrong information, so I had to scrap that. And I've been doing a couple scripts. I don't know. I'm not going to mention the scripts because I feel like the ones in progress I'm probably going to keep going with. I really appreciate the support I've gotten on this channel. I mean, it's still, even like 9 months later, kind of blows me away. And I really hope that this change from Kingdom Hearts is, you know, cool with everyone. I don't know. I just feel like I wanted to talk about Astro Bot. And it really is an amazing game. So, thanks. I can't really promise that more stuff's coming soon. I'm going to try to get more stuff soon. I feel like my usual cycle is like, oh, I make a couple videos that I work like endlessly on, and then I just don't do anything for months. And actually, I think this has been so far the longest time I've taken in between videos. So, yeah, sorry about that. Anyway, I'll see you guys later, I guess. And bye.